righty, good evening, everyone. First item for tonight is to get an update from the Horsham Fire Company. Have center stage, sir.
I guess I got to sit at the table. I'm not used to doing that.
You can do that,
Do the
Lee,
mic
if you want to stand at the mic, your choice.
You can
I'll
walk
just
over.
sit at the table. Okay. First of all, I would like to just thank Council, Mr. Walker, for allowing me to represent the fire company here and give you our annual year in review. This is certainly something that the fire company looks forward to every year, and I'm glad to be here. So just the first few slides are just kind of a review of who we are. Nothing has really changed since last year. Still 4 divisions: fire, EMS, fire, police, and auxiliary. Battalion 1 still has the rescue engine and one of the ladder trucks, the utility, and 3 of the ambulances. And then Battalion 2 has 1 engine, one of the ladder trucks, and an ambulance. 16 active volunteers. 8 juniors. We're still maintaining our 8 junior members. We had a couple that graduated off of junior status, but we were able to get a couple more kids from high school. One of them is actually my son. So we're still maintaining the 8 juniors. Dual service, we continue to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week out of both stations. We still have the 3rd crew during the week, during the day, 9 in the morning to 7 at night. And that still maintains during the week, during the day, the 5 firefighter EMT/paramedics working out of the Meeting House Road Station and 2 at the Horsham Road Station. Budget, we're anticipating finishing the year at budget levels, certainly not exceeding budget for both the General and the Relief Association. And just a reminder of what the Relief Association is. It's a separate technically it's a separate organization within the fire company. It's money provided to us from out-of-state insurance companies that write insurance policies within the township. So we actually had a little bit of an increase this year, which is a good thing, because the last few years it had been going down. And that money is it's very defined what we can use that money for. Typically, it's insurance and safety items for the members. So some specialized training. We continue to do our core training and try and emphasize doing, expand upon our core training with ladder company operations, hazmat operations, which the folks are just finishing up across the way there tonight. We had one of our younger members achieve Firefighter 1 certification. We continue to train on the rapid intervention team training, which is training for downed firefighters. And we did some advanced rapid intervention. So that really, it's very intense training. Typically, it's all scenario based. It's very little classroom. It's all really testing how far you can actually push yourself to rescue a downed firefighter. It's pretty intense. And we had a bunch of members go through that and successfully pass that. And we're working with the fire marshal to do some acquired structure training, large area search, again doing more RIT training and hose line advancement. So as we get buildings, Matt is very generous with making contacts for us, and we get in there and we can do the training. We don't do any live fire training in them. We use either canned smoke machine, or just darkness. We continue to train 50 Wednesdays out of the year. We take the last 2 Wednesdays off of the year for during the holiday season. Again, we train for an all hazards approach. We deal with just about everything here in some way, shape, or form. So we train for that type of approach. We have annual updates similar to what the police do. We do annual updates in the beginning of the year for CPR, first aid, those types of things, infection control. And then as we can get into the warmer weather in the end of March and into the spring, we start going outside and doing auto extrication training, firefighting, fire rescue, water rescue, rope rescue, and we usually end the year doing hazmat. So some accomplishments, if you remember from last year's presentation, we were gearing up to have the kitchen and lounge and crew area redone at the Meeting House Road Station. That has just been completed. It looks great. I encourage everybody to stop in and see it. It's definitely going to be a benefit for our members and our employees. It's a much more usable space, and it's certainly more comfortable. We continue to strive to keep the juniors interested, and we dedicate some junior firefighting training for them, both on Wednesday nights during the normal company training, as well as on some Sundays and some auxiliary days if there's something that somebody wants to do with them. We rejuvenated the fire safety training at Keith Valley. Kitchen safety is part of the nutrition and wellness class. Jay is the one that teaches that now. If you remember, for years and years, Bob Johnson taught it, but since he retired, Jay has taken that over. We're actually considered part of the faculty. Jay's actually considered part of the faculty for the school district when he does that class. So that's pretty exciting stuff. It's always well received by the students, and it's pretty in depth. Fire prevention, again, was a success this year. We were out to all the elementary schools and some of the daycare centers, providing that age-appropriate training. And we continue to evaluate policies and procedures. This is always in there every year, but our world literally changes every day. Similar to the police department, there's always something coming down. So we have to adapt and make sure that we have policies and procedures that will help us and aid us in that. God forbid there's a legal challenge, but just so our people are as safe as they can be while we're out there operating. So some accomplishments, this is huge. Our EMS is second to none, which we'll talk about in some depth in a few minutes, but we just received word that our providers are Gold Plus standard for Mission Lifeline for cardiac arrest and cardiac emergency type responses. So we usually get this award every year, but this year we were Gold Plus, so there isn't anything better than that. We took, I think I spoke about this a little bit last year, and certainly during the autism night here, we are in the process and continue to do autism training. We trained those units up, those organizations up there, obviously Horsham Fire and Police, Warrington Fire, Warrington EMS, and Warrington Police, for Washington Fire. Any of those organizations or area police departments that request training for autism response, will provide it for them free of charge. We have a pretty good setup with some folks donating the money to provide the bags that we give if anybody wants them for. If you respond to somebody that has autism, is challenged by autism, they're in that bag. There are all kinds of different tools that you can use to calm the situation, and we provide them. Kaleidoscope, which is a community organization located down on Horsham Road, we provided them training because they are like the other side. They are the family support group. So we provided what fire and EMS are looking for, and how we are trained to deal with somebody that is challenged by autism if we're there during their crisis. So that was a great interaction, and we continue to keep them as a resource as well. Today and I believe tomorrow, we're working with the school nurses for the school district to provide them some of that training as well, in addition to some other EMS type training, so they understand what to do when the ambulance shows up at the school. So we have a huge amount of outreach going on right now. And we also had Brian Folk, who was here the night for autism. We were both invited, however, I couldn't make it because I had a prior commitment, but we were both invited to the National Volunteer Council annual meeting in Mesa, Arizona as panel speakers, and he was able to attend, and he presented that night, during that conference, which is pretty exciting stuff. So now Horsham Fire Company is on the national circuit for speaking about autism response. We are working on becoming an American Heart Association training site, which we expect to be finalized in the January of 23. We're working hard to get that, make that happen, and so we'll be able to provide CPR classes for our members, as well as some of the advanced classes for the paramedics but also we'll be able to do some community classes if there's a need and people ask, we'll be able to put them together. The next portion, we just found out about this within the last couple weeks. We have been advised that Horsham Fire Company is now a model for the EMS portion of the Department of Community and Economic Development evaluation process statewide. So what that means, as you know, we're getting ready to kick off our own study for the whole organization. Well, the people that do that are using our EMS model and our fire department model to present to other organizations that they go out and do studies for that do combination fire and EMS as well as combination volunteer and career. So we're pretty proud of that. We just found that out the other day. It hasn't been officially released yet, so you're hearing it here. So that's pretty cool stuff. You should be proud. I'm proud. We had our kickoff meeting for the third-party evaluation that's supposed to be starting in January. We opted not to start that during the fourth quarter due to holidays and so forth and so on, so we'll be kicking that off in January. And we expect that to be 6 to 9 months, and we will certainly keep council involved in that process. I imagine they might even want to interview one or two of you. But we'll certainly, once they provide us with the final product, we'll certainly submit that to you for review. Some other hot topics. We are on the Region 5, which is our radio region standardization committee, and we hosted the first meeting, and we are a leader in the group. So what that means is all the area fire departments on Region 5 are trying to standardize the way we respond to calls, the way we deal with different types of calls, the way we talk on the radio, everything. We're finally, people joke about the fire service being 300 years of tradition unimpeded by progress, and here we are trying to make progress, right? So this is a huge step forward because there's a lot of people in the room that I would have thought never would have been in that room, and we're all there. We're trying. We've had successful meetings so far. It started off with working with the accountability system, so where our firefighters are working on the scene and how we keep account of them. That's how it started, and it has morphed into other things, and it's pretty exciting stuff. To that end, we changed our accountability system, and it's better tracking of all the firefighters while they're operating an emergency scene. It's shared by other companies throughout the county. So we used to just have a very simple system that nobody shared with us. So if we went out of town or somebody came to us to assist us, everybody had their own system. And that's how we get hurt, and that's how we lose people. So we decided that we were going to go onto a system that the rest of the county was starting up, and we got in on the ground floor, and we're making it work. And it's good stuff. It's working for our organization. We provided some extensive training in the water rescue response. We had a core group of people that were the water rescue people for years and years. Some of us got older, some of us didn't want to do it any longer because it is extremely intense. And so some other people wanted to filter in, so we ran a class, and now we have like 12 additional people that are now on the team doing that within our organization. We purchased 2 life rafts for rescue. We will not buy a boat. We will not buy a boat, you've heard it here. But we purchased 2 rafts, one for each station. And those are designed to be walk-in, so the rescuers will walk in, put the people that are in trouble in the raft, and then walk them out. It's safer for the rescuers because they're able to keep a better control of the people, and we're not walking them through the troubled water, as well as it's safer for the firefighters because they only have to worry about keeping their hand on the boat, not losing somebody in rushing water. So, and if God forbid something were to happen, if they get flushed downstream, at least they're in the raft. They would still have life jackets on and that kind of stuff. So it's just safer for everybody. We're investigating upgrading our hydraulic tool system, which is the tools that we use to extricate people out of car accidents, the jaws of life, if you will. The existing tools are working fine. However, the new metals that the automakers are using now do present a pretty significant challenge. It's a slower cut. Sometimes we can't spread the metals like we used to be able to do and like we're used to doing. So we're investigating, looking at upgrading our tool system. It is not a cheap is not a cheap project. We're looking to, it'll probably be somewhere in the area of $80,000 to $100,000. So it'll probably be a phased-in project, but we are actively looking at doing that. Just one last thing, the float truck. So without getting too technical, typically you call 911 if you're in Horsham Township or a local area, and if you need an ambulance, Horsham responds, right? So we'll send an ambulance out to your house or wherever and help you out. We have been inundated with calls out of town, covering other squads, covering people that just don't have the amount of people that we do, so forth and so on, to the point where it has impacted Horsham. Because if our ambulances are in Upper Moreland or Montgomery Township or anywhere else, they're not here. We also use our ambulance career staffing as their, 50% of their job is firefighting. So we lose a lot of our firefighting force when they're out dealing with other people's problems. So we have opted to, this was a long and arduous task to try to figure out a way to do this so we could pass we could pass our own smell test, for lack of a better term, and be able to pass the red face test on how we potentially choose how we're going to help our neighbors out. So we opted, after a lot of research, we opted to do what they call a float truck. So one of our ambulances they still remain on status, and they're still available for what we call priority 1 calls, which are immediate calls for life safety, cardiac arrest, drownings, shootings, that kind of thing. However, they're off the other cards for other people's towns for some of the secondary type calls. So it's not that we don't want to help them out, but our core mission is to serve Horsham. So that's what that's about. So here's some statistics about EMS. Total EMS dispatches through September 30th was 2,847. That's almost a 20% increase from last year. Mutual aid calls was almost 950. We're up over 1,000 at this point. So we've transported about 1,600 of those to the hospital, and that's up 12% from 2021. And we've scratched some calls because we've been dispatched to more calls. So a scratch is when Horsham doesn't have an available unit to take the call. Some fire statistics, 549 calls so far through October, or that's actually September 30th, my apologies, that's a typo. We're holding steady at 5.5 firefighters on the apparatus through a 24-hour, over a 24-hour period on average. So what does that mean? That means that there's 5.5 firefighters responding to calls on average. That also, during the day, don't forget we have 7 people working. So that automatically guarantees that there's usually an ambulance out, right? At night, when there's only 4 people working, that's like 1.5 volunteers on average. Some nights we do better than others. Some nights we don't. So we're holding steady, but it's not getting any better. So, from a recruitment and retention standpoint, we're reevaluating our duty crew program. We continue to do that. The emphasis now is on staffing the stations. We've proven that staff stations just works. It's better for the organization, it's better for the community, it's better for the firefighters because they don't have to respond to the station and then get on the truck. They're already there. We've had some incidents in town where we had people in the firehouse and our response time was amazing. We were out the door in a minute or two and there in a minute or two. And that is just so much better than if you have to wait for people to come from home. We continue to make community events as possible and get our message out. We certainly need help. And we brought back the annual dinner this year, largely scaled down from the previous banquets that we used to have, that some of you folks have been invited to in the past. It is truly just for the members. It's no slight on anybody else, but we were able to have a nice dinner with just the members, and we can talk and present some awards and some recognitions, but it's usually a quick night. Some capital projects for '22. We hope to actually paint the firehouse on Meeting House Road again this year. It's kind of always gets tabled for other issues, but we're hoping that that actually happens this year. We are looking to refurbish our rescue engine. We can't afford to buy a new one. The cost of fire apparatus has just gone up astronomically. So we've done some extensive testing with the existing engine, and we've gotten some stuff back from labs and from the manufacturer that said, you're a good candidate for a rebuild because your core parts of the truck are actually in good shape. That's a credit to our people. That's a credit to our engineering program because they keep the trucks running and keep them in good shape. So we'll be considering a refurbishment, which will save us about almost $1 million by the time we get done with this. Definitely about $750,000. So anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million, it will definitely save us. We have continued to, we've committed to purchase a new ambulance. The order was placed in September, and we hope to see it late '23. Probably realistic, we won't see that till first quarter '24, but we're hoping that we can see it in '23. Our other new ambulance that we purchased should be here tomorrow, and in service in just a few weeks once we get some licensing and get some paperwork taken care of for it. But you know, we're trying to update the fleet and keep it running because we are busy. Future considerations, staffing in general, maintaining and if not adding to our volunteer staffing and maintaining just an outstanding career staff. And then we always keep an eye on longevity plans for the fire company. How do we sustain it both financially and operationally? Any questions? Oh, come on, I'm not that good.
That was a really good presentation, actually. Nice to see all the accomplishments that you accomplish. I don't know if you have time to go out and put out fires with all this stuff.
Well, we have a great staff, you know,
Yeah.
both volunteer and career, that allows us to do all that. A lot of dedicated people.
You said, I think there was one slide, you're getting an ambulance in now?
One's coming tomorrow,
Right.
literally, and then
And one for next
we
year?
ordered one, which will take about a year to 14 months, 15 months to get.
Delays like everything else?
Yeah,
Or-
just delays and, yeah.
And if you get an electric one?
You know, it's funny, we've talked about considering some of that stuff, but those things are like double the price. And they don't really even offer an electric ambulance yet. They're starting to do electric fire trucks, but they're like double the price.
Hope you charge it up in time. No, it was a great presentation. You know, you guys are doing a great job, and you know, it shows because you're keeping staffing, you're keeping your volunteers, your junior volunteers, which is, I mean, we know how important it is and how hard it is to keep people and to get people. I know there's other townships that are struggling just to keep people, even around the country. I think you said before.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, it's a national problem.
So, no, congratulations. It's great. I really don't have anything else.
I just want to say, you know, to Lee and Jason and Frank, outstanding. I mean, you know, to be a model, Lee and I started the same year, I think, 92. And over the 3 decades, and Frank, I know you've been around even longer than that, but you always get people that, you know, at different levels of government, individuals, why aren't you doing it this way? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And, you know, and we got pushback in the past from even at the county level. You know, like, you know, oh, Horsham, you know, they should be, there's studies, you should be doing it this way. And everyone else is doing it, so why don't you do it? And through the leadership and vision of these gentlemen here and the fire company, they knew it just didn't fit Horsham. It wasn't a fit for Horsham and our community. And, you know, they got criticized for not making different selections, but it wasn't a fit for us. And now we're a model across the Commonwealth. Now we get calls, you know, I get calls from other managers, how do you do it? How do you do it? You know, how do you keep people? You know, how does it, we want the same model. I won't say the municipalities, but there's 2 right around us that want to meet with us and try to begin the process to model their fire companies after ours. So, in the past, we took a lot of criticism, not a lot, but a little pushback and some criticism, and that's okay. Lee and Frank and Jason, they're left alone. They're the professionals. They're the ones that lead the department and make the decisions, and what has become a statewide model and maybe soon to be a national model. They attract people. They don't have a revolving door. We have 2 stations now that are 24/7. And now we have the staffing where Lee explained earlier that we have to go cover other communities. So it's an amazing accomplishment of what these gentlemen have done over decades in Horsham and where they're at today. So, I'm very proud of what you've done. I'm very proud of the fire company, very proud of you. Thank you for sticking around for 30, 40 years. Jason, you're a newbie, but...
And you trained me to do it.
and your career, that's right.
Sure, but I do get
But, it's just an amazing job that these gentlemen and people at the fire company have done over decades and where they are at today with this fire company. It's just amazing. So thank you.
And I apologize, I just want to finish on one. We just found out today, through Jay's leadership with the EMS folks, that we are probably going to be one of 2 organizations in the state that will be doing pre-hospital ultrasound on the ambulance for certain medical calls, cardiac arrest, serious cardiac calls, trauma calls, those types of things we'll be able to provide. Ultrasound, which will help the doctors pre-hospital to better treat. So we truly are a leader in the EMS world within the state, if not further. So.
Real-time ultrasound from the ambulance to the hospital?
Yeah, there's a couple different technologies involved. The first one is point of care. So when we apply that ultrasound device, obviously we can see the images, and we're doing some training to know what we're looking at. Through a bridge with the county and a communications bridge that's in place, we can send live images to the emergency rooms if they choose to support the system. Either way, we can capture still images on a tablet, and when we get there, we can show them what we saw in that moment, hopefully kind of point them in the right direction on what we're looking for.
Wow.
A couple really good indications for it that we think will be useful.
That's cool. That saves a lot of time.
You said there were 81 scratch calls, right?
Yep.
So what happens? Are they secondary calls, or they just?
No, you get an ambulance from another town. They could be anything. You'll get an ambulance from, Ambler, Second Alarmers, Warminster, wherever. You'll get another ambulance. And then,
I'm assuming that means if you have calls in Horsham and there's too many calls at once, and you're not saying that if another township calls and says, we don't have anybody, and you're like,
Well, we can't send anybody either.
yeah, if we're dispatched, we got to go. Like,
Right.
that's just the way it is. So typically how a scratch happens, like, for instance, right now, we have 2 crews working, 1 in each station. If the first ambulance goes out, and then the second ambulance goes out, and then there's a 3rd call in town here,
and you send it out to somebody else.
then a mutual aid ambulance will come in and handle that call.
Currently, both assigned ambulance calls.
Yes.
Okay. But you're still getting a lot of calls from outside of town,
We're
from the number of calls
We're
you're
at
getting.
1,000 calls already for outside already. I mean, we're probably going to be pretty close to 3,500 calls for the year by the time the year's over, which is just astronomical. Because, I mean, we never used to go over 2,300, and now we're at 3,500 in like a year or 2.
Is it, I don't know, down anybody else, but is it just a lack of
So there's-
help other places, the lack of
There's a
staffing?
there's a national paramedic shortage, national paramedic EMT shortage. And we're feeling the effects of it in this area too. Just like there's a shortage of volunteer firefighters, it's the same thing.
It's not an increase in calls necessarily?
Well, I think there's an increase in calls that doesn't help, but it's,
Not to match the increase.
right, right. We have,
1,200
it's a
increase.
staffing issue. It's two different issues. It's a staffing issue. And fortunately, we have a lot of dedicated people, and we have a pretty high standard of people that we hire. And we're able to retain those folks because there is a high standard.
How far do you normally go outside of Horsham? And the reason I ask that is because it's all about timing, right? I mean, timing's critical. When somebody's hurt or an accident or a cardiac arrest, it's like, well, if you're 20 minutes away, that's not a good thing, right?
So I'll tell you that in 30 years of being here, and I started on the ambulance here in Horsham, and as I rose through the ranks in the fire department, my time on the ambulance decreased. But when I started here, I didn't even know where Hatfield was. I barely knew where Cheltenham was. And now those are regular areas that we go to cover calls. The other day, I was at work and I was listening, and I could both of our ambulances, two of the three, went to Cheltenham on two different calls, and they were less than a mile apart. So, I mean, we used to go to Cheltenham once or twice in 6 months. Now we're going a couple times a week.
Well, again, that's kudos to you, to the way you're handling things.
We're trying.
And hopefully those other townships will take note and try to emulate what you're doing and increase their staffing somehow. I know it's tough, but
We hope.
take some pressure off.
And I want to be real clear, we don't mind helping our neighbors.
Oh, no, I wasn't implying that.
Yeah, I mean,
I know you do, but.
We love helping our neighbors. It's just our core mission is Horsham, so.
I can't kill another 15 minutes, so. I just got to say thanks a lot. And
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
And we'll see you soon. All right, so it's 7:45-ish. We are going to start our public hearing. So good evening. Council will now hold a public hearing on an ordinance which, if adopted, would amend the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for Class 1 uses in the Business Park District. We have been experiencing an increase in requests for life science and light assembly uses. In order to keep our office parks viable, we need to accommodate these uses. This ordinance attempts to create a climate which will attract light assembly and life sciences uses by changing the ratio between office areas and light manufacturing areas, and by allowing research and testing facilities in all parts of the Business Park District. This ordinance prohibits loading areas adjacent to residential uses. This hearing is not an adjudicative hearing, so no stenographer is present this evening. This hearing is your opportunity to learn about the ordinance from the applicant and let council know if you have an opinion on the proposed ordinance. There will then be an opportunity for comment from council, and then I'll ask for public comment. Bill, you want to take it from here?
It's really just what you said. It's a pretty simple ordinance amendment. It's allowing additional uses in our office park. Sometimes the market changes quicker than we can keep up with changing our zoning ordinance. So what we've gotten a lot of interested in Horsham Township is life science, health science. And right now, the way our ordinance is written for the office park, the Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus and the Horsham Business Center, which both of them fall under our business park zoning district, a company, a life science, health science company would have to go to our zoning hearing board to get approval for their use. And a lot of it has to do with warehousing. Warehousing in the sense that they need to bring in raw material for their product, and then they need to manufacture their product, and then they need to store their product before they ship it out as part of their model. And our ordinance doesn't allow that. So this modifies our ordinance to allow for that.
Mary, is there anything you'd like to add as far as restrictions, things we should know about that would be restrictive for this type of thing?
No, there aren't that many changes made to the existing ordinance. What it really does is, what Bill said is, there were limits on the kind of research and testing, or the amount of research and testing, and the amount of warehousing of the actual product that could be done under the business park ordinance. And what this ordinance does is tries to provide an opportunity to do that testing while still protecting adjacent residential neighborhoods by not allowing loading docks and loading facilities adjacent to the residential neighborhoods. So we worked pretty hard to try and make it a climate that was favorable to life sciences while still respecting the neighborhoods that could be affected.
And as we know, there is a push, I guess, around the country pretty much that these types of uses becoming more and more popular, and it's smaller spaces, but, you know, just a lot of different uses, and some of the buildings that we have in there could be utilized for that type of thing.
Yeah, and what it, just so you also know, what it doesn't allow is for, warehousing is sometimes a scary term in zoning, and does not allow for warehousing distribution centers, like an Amazon distribution center. It doesn't allow for that.
Anybody else up here, any questions or comments about it? Anybody in the public? Okay. You have nothing to say? So after this further discussion that we didn't have, council will now hold this, close this hearing, and we will consider the ordinance later this evening. And we got 9 minutes. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any questions or comments from the public tonight? Your name and address for the minutes, if you would.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Ellen Chunky, 513 Cyril Drive. I got here a little early unexpectedly. I thought the meeting was at 7. My apologies, but I got to hear an excellent presentation, and I, encourage you to listen to the amazing work that our fire department is doing, especially in the leadership in the nation among autism education and training for other fire departments, as well as what they've been doing. I also wanted to take the time to thank the council and the library department for the investment in the programming porch at the Horsham Library. It looks like Public Works was busy getting that concrete installed before it got too cold for that. So I, for one, am really grateful for that and looking forward to it in the warmer weather. I also wanted to inquire about the process for requesting improvements for a neighborhood park, specifically Maple Park in Meeting House Village. With the Liberty Ridge development especially being very close by, we see it as an opportunity, and it seems sensible to update this space to welcome new residents to the township and also support the families currently living in Meeting House Village and neighboring communities who may take walks in the neighborhood and enjoy that park. I invited my daughter to come with me tonight to speak on the topic, and I told her I was coming to talk about the park in our neighborhood. And she said, "What park in our neighborhood?" And I explained the area I was talking about, and she said, "That park sucks." Her words, not mine. And just to give some emphasis to that, it's a space that is one of our township parks. I have a great deal of pride in Horsham Township. I am a lifelong resident. I have a great deal of pride in what I heard from the fire department tonight, from the library, what I learned last night, and I want to have pride in our community, our neighborhood, our local park as well. So I just wanted to inquire about that, and I'll follow up via email. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So, Bill, I know there were some plans surrounding that park. There was some buffering that was being done by the developer? This is going back a bit. I'm trying to jog my memory a little bit, but is there any plans to do anything with the park after this development is completed, or?
Nothing specific. So as soon as I get your email, we can meet and talk about things and then, move forward with something in the future, plan for something. The only thing with the new development is they're required to do a connecting trail to the park. And I believe they've made also as part of the land development agreement, a $25,000 contribution towards any future improvements of Maple Park.
All right, so that's a start, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We do take pride in our park, so.
And what was that amount, if you can repeat, Bill?
25,000?
And that's from Pulte?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a connecting trail plan?
Plan, yes.
Okay.
I was going to say is we do take pride in our parks, and we don't like to hear that they suck, so. So you can tell your daughter that it was well noted.
It's also, I'm not necessarily looking at this for my daughter, but for the future of our community.
No, it's the whole community. Absolutely. I get it. We get it. Very good. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. Approval of minutes. Do we have a motion?
Move to
Buddy?
approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Let's see, we have a treasurer's report.
Balance in the general fund as of October 31st, 2022 is $4,904,973.78. For the most part, the expenses and revenues in all funds reflect normal activity for October. As of the end of the month, we have received 104.29% of budgeted revenue and have expended 78.61% of budgeted expenses. The effects of the pandemic and the cost of inflation continue to affect our budget, especially in regards to fuel and utility costs, as well as our revenue from the earned income tax and local services tax. I expect this to continue for the remainder of this year as well as the majority of 2023. We are monitoring it closely, and through our conservative budgeting practices, I do believe we will be able to manage these economic headwinds. For a more detailed presentation of our current financial position, I would refer you to your monthly booklet.
I move to approve the list of checks in all funds in the amount of $379,556.13, and further move to authorize payment of the same. And I also move to ratify the U.S. Bank credit card transactions for the month of October 2022 in the amount of $17,403.73.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next is your update on the PFAS water issue in Horsham.
So as you recall, over the summer months, we decided to go on a quarterly basis on updates to the PFAS water issue. Most of the stuff that has occurred has been from the regulatory agencies. So over the summer, EPA lowered the health advisory levels for PFOA, went to 0.004 parts per trillion, and PFAS went to 0.02 parts per trillion. And as council knows, and hopefully some of our residents know, since October 2019, our Horsham public drinking water system has been below detection levels for a number of PFAS compounds, to include PFOA and PFAS. Then after that, in October, DEP took some action, maximum contaminated levels, which is MCLs, for both chemicals, and they passed, their Environmental Quality Board passed levels of 14 parts per trillion for PFOA and 18 parts per trillion for PFAS. And in this month, the independent, or next month I should say, the Independent Regulatory Review Commission, which is all part of the DEP system in the state, is supposed to vote next month on those levels. So we also anticipate EPA will be proposing MCLs for PFAS chemicals. My opinion, my guess is by the end of 2023. As you know, you were almost light years ahead of these agencies that took this long. These chemicals hit our community in 2014, and in 2016, and council quickly responded rather than wait for DEP or EPA to come and save us. We did it ourselves. Another point that Horsham should be very proud of. Wells 10, 17, and 21 are all expected to have their permanent treatment systems on by spring of 2023. And the next RAB meeting, which is the Restoration Advisory Board, is scheduled for Thursday, December 8th. They're usually in the evenings, but this one's a little different. It's going to be at 10 a.m., and it's going to be on base. You have to pre-register for security reasons. We'll be posting that out there prior to December 8th. We'll post it on our social media and our website of how to register to attend the meeting. It is open to the public as long as you register and follow what their security guidelines are. And then they are going to do a base tour after the meeting, a base tour of the Air Guard Station and the former Navy base, both of them, but pre-registration will be required. With the Navy groundwater treatment systems, as of October 31st, their pilot number 1, which is by Hangar 68, they've treated 26.144 million gallons of water. And their second site off Horsham Road, as of October 31st, they've treated 7.455 million gallons of water. Not to read everything below, but the Biddle Air Guard Station is now going through the process with the regulatory agencies and the review process to also have a groundwater treatment system placed onto their base. The health study, that's been going on for almost a year now. It's wrapping up, so this fall is it. They've had a good participation from adults, but they're lacking children. So anyone in the community who has children or grandchildren that might be interested, this is all free. And you get gift cards and stuff for signing up and getting your blood tested. But that's the phone number. It's over in Warminster on the former near Ann's Choice is where the office is located. But they also are looking for children. And as I said, they will be wrapping up. I think it's next month that they will wrap up any their testing. So we're trying to get some children recruited for that. And then just to wrap up the drinking water efforts here in Horsham, our system has been below detection levels since October of 2019. And as we've been told by EPA and DEP, our public water system in Horsham Township is one of the safest drinking water systems in the country. And we know that because we have other mayors, city managers, water managers from around the country calling us and asking how we did it. So that's my report.
Thank you very much, Bill. Next is... I'm sorry.
Can I jump in? So we never get an audience like this unless we're honoring the police department or the fire department, or there's a land development that has somebody angry and we get a full audience. So we are particularly proud of what we've done here in Horsham in response to the water contamination issue. We put out a lot of material about this, and I think a lot of times it comes in the mail and we put it in the trash. There's an organization called the Military Installation Remediation and Infrastructure Authority. We wanted to come up with a catchier name, but it's really not. We call it the MIRIA. And I know each of you get this newsletter. I don't know if you take the time to read it, but we all should owe a great deal of gratitude to Todd Stevens, because Todd Stevens worked tirelessly in Harrisburg to set the MIRIA up. And if you take the time to read this, for example, the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority, who is responsible for implementing the protection of our water system with what we call the GAC filters. Just for example, $224,000 for a quick response grant this year just to upgrade the filter systems to provide this water at the levels that we've been doing since 2019 for non-detect. So it's easy to lose sight because we hit you with so much stuff in either the township report or this MIRIA report, but this isn't just Horsham. This is Ambler, this is Warminster, this is all the surrounding communities have been in fact impacted by the contamination that's coming from the base. So if you ever, you get a little bored and you want to read some of this, this is meaningful, impactful stuff that actually is government doing good, which we don't see a lot of. We see a lot of negativity. Thank God the election's over. Hopefully it's not over for Todd. But Todd Stevens did this. And so we all owe Todd a debt of gratitude. Thank you.
Next is consider an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance that we referred to earlier in the hearing we had. Do we have a motion for that?
Move to adopt the ordinance as proposed, amending the zoning ordinance, Chapter 230, to amend the regulations pertaining to Article XXXIX Business Park District as it pertains to Class 1 uses.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote? Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote? And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is we have one bid to look at the Blair Mill Road widening Phase 2.
The Blair Mill Road Widening Phase 2 project, as council knows, we've been working on this since January of 2016. We finally went out to bid for the construction. We got 4 bids received. Allen Myers, they were the highest at $7,156,777. Highway Materials Incorporated, they were $7,117,637.50. J.D. Ekman Incorporated was $6,917,000, $820.53. And James D. Morrissey Incorporated was the lowest bidder at $6,673,976.29. It is the staff's recommendation. The bid has been reviewed by the engineers and by PennDOT, and James D. Morrissey is the lowest responsible bidder, and staff recommendation to you this evening.
No questions, we have a motion?
I move to award the Blair Mill Road Widening Phase 2 project bid to James D. Marcy, Inc. in the amount of $6,673,976.29, and hereby authorize execution of the contract for the same, and further authorize the township manager is signed the contract.
Second. Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have a land development project for the Horsham Soccer Association.
Yes, and we'll ask Anton and Nick, anyone else from the Soccer Association to come up. As council knows, the Soccer Association has been fundraising for a little over a year and planning for artificial synthetic turf fields at Kohler Park. They have, I think, raised almost their full amount at this point. The township engineer, you have allowed the township engineer to do all the engineering and design work for the new fields, turf fields. But we also, under our ordinance, this is a land development, and we want to treat them the same as we've treated everyone else, to include the school district with artificial turf fields. And they are here this evening to ask you for requests of our land development ordinance.
Thank
Hey,
you.
you're
Thanks.
up.
Thanks for having us. With me is Nick Belizzi, the president of the board of Horsham Soccer. I'm a board member, tournament director for Colin Riley Tournament. And thanks for your time. Just really short PowerPoint to go through, a little bit about us, about what we've been working on and what we got here. So we've been together since 1976. Myself, I've been a member and for 13 years now, coaching and children playing. You know, annually we have about 600 families involved, over 850 children participating, and we're run by a 17-member board. Everybody on the board has to have a child in the program. So there is some turnover as children leave the program, so we'll talk about that later as it pertains to the turf. So we run a travel and intramural programs. We go from fall and spring and even over to winter now. Sometimes we have the Colleen Riley tournament in August every year. It was our 35th year this past summer. And one of the things we learned with COVID is it was great to get these kids back out and playing with each other. And you can see the smiles, a lot of smiles there. So, and one of the things, if get the next slide, that we ran into with Kohler. Kohler's been in the facility there since before I came on the board. And you can see it takes a lot of wear and tear. There's 800 kids playing. It's our main location, especially in the fall for practices. So it gets a lot of wear and tear. And apologize for transitions. I had my 6th grader help me with this. Hopefully, yeah. So we ran into issues. There's it's a low area, Kohler Park, so we have a lot of poor drainage and standing water on the fields, which leads to often a lot of unplayable conditions. Probably like 3 years ago, we had all that fall of rain that really took a toll on our fields, and we lost games, and there was a lot of underutilization of the site. And really, we're looking at sinking a lot of costs into the fields to maintain them for competitive play and, for both our intramural and travel programs. So one of the things that came up is looking at a synthetic turf, because even if you look at the Kohler master plan, it was, the potential for other fields, other locations to build them. There's limited space here. So the best utilization we felt would be a turf. So as Bill mentioned, Gilmore and Associates put together a plan for us. We're looking to build one large turf. There's some animation there. That's a full-size field, 11v11 field. For soccer, there's 3 field sizes that U.S. youth soccer requires. You have to have an 11v11, 11 players, a 9v9 for your 11, 12-year-olds, and then a 7v7 field for the younger kids. So the large field would be both an 11v11 field plus 2 9v9 fields. We have a small turf field that would be for the 7v7 field that would go in between the existing fields. With the turf, we'll have above-ground stormwater management system to help with drainage on that site. And then anything we take off of the fields, we're going to redress one of the other existing fields to help with drainage. There's a lot of standing water on that, the one field, our field number 1, we call it. So generally, that's the improvements we're looking for. The site plans have been developed by Gilmore. They've submitted to Montgomery County Conservation District, and hopefully it's the last submission. As Bill mentioned, we've secured funding both through fundraising. We've been saving money from registrations and whatever as Colleen Riley tournament as it's come in. We've been successful on some grants, so we have a variety of things. There's still things we would like to do that we still want to get more fundraising for, fencing and benches and maybe lights, things along those lines. But the core of what we want to do with the turf fields, we're confident we have the funding to complete that. As I mentioned, we're a board that turns over because of the children playing. So one of the important things that we're going to be developing is a maintenance and operation plan so that, 7 to 10 years turfs need replacement. We're going to make sure that's in place as new board members come in and they know what has to be done. And we're going to set aside registration fees to fund that moving forward so we don't get into an issue down the road. And hopefully with permitting and working through the grant requirements, we're hopefully looking winter, spring of next year to hopefully begin, and maybe in the spring we can get some games on the fields. And then I guess one thing I didn't mention is we are working with girls lacrosse and boys lacrosse, and we might also paint the fields for lacrosse. So we're using it for other community groups in Horsham. And I guess the key point is that we want to utilize that to help maximize the use of it, whether it's renting it out to lacrosse, and that's always used and it's not unoccupied. That's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions for myself or for Nick.
Just real quick, so as you know, Gilmore is doing the design and engineering, and I just asked Eric before we get into questions, because there might be questions of this. Eric, could you review what stormwater control measures are being put in place? I know they mentioned the basin, but could you?
Or do you mind
elaborate?
going back to that slide, just so we can? So some of you might be saying, well, why are we doing stormwater management? We're not paving a parking lot, we're not adding bike paths, whatnot, but these synthetic turf fields, the water goes right through them and gets into a collection system. So it kind of acts like it's impervious. So Anton's slide there does talk about there's an above-ground stormwater management basin. So underneath both of these fields, there's a lot of under drains and a lot of stone. And although there's some storage in there, as they mentioned, it's really wet out there. This whole area used to be wetlands that were filled in many, many years ago. So there was no infiltration out there. So all the water that gets through those 2 fields will get piped into that above-ground stormwater management basin. It'll be held there, water quality improved, the rate reduced, before it then discharges into a swale that runs along, there you go, Bill, down there and off into the
Park
woods.
Creek.
So as Anton mentioned, We have been going through the County Conservation District for an MPDS permit. We resubmitted that in early October. We're told that we should have a review/approval later this week or early next week. If we don't, I'm sure it's going to be a comment or two, and it'll certainly get addressed quickly. So there's no reason that we won't have that permit, in the next 30 days to meet their schedule. So otherwise, you're meeting all your other ordinance requirements. So.
I know Greg had just leaned over and asked me, so is that going to be retaining water? It's like a pond. Oh, well, all right.
Now you can go ahead and ask it.
I'm sorry, I just thought, it's a good
I
question.
just picture the kids,
Yeah.
seeing that as like a nice pool to jump into.
Well, I mean, we can dam it up, and when it gets cold enough, you can ice
Gonna
skate
hold
on
water?
it. Whatever. No, it's not going to hold water. There's not going to be a permanent
That could
water.
be a problem.
So.
Defeats the purpose of the synthetic field if they all.
The ice skating? In the
Well,
winter?
it won't be ice.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to ask that question.
You could have asked him in private. Because we do. He is our engineer, right? So what's your timeline?
For starting construction
Yeah.
and how long it's going to take in
When
construction.
are the kids going to be on the field?
Plan is to start, as soon as the permit gets back, as long as the weather holds up, to start December, January, and then hopefully be on the field by May at the latest for spring season.
Great. So what's we'll go over again what our role is in this.
Sure, number one, we're the property owner, so we own the soil and the land, and it's a township park, so we're giving them the land to do this field. And if something would ever happen to the Horsham Soccer Association, the field, would be part of our park system. But our main commitment is the land for them to do it and engineering services. So for everything that's involved engineering-wise, and they will be in design, they will be through construction, inspection, and if there's any grant paperwork that needs to be done with engineers, Gilmore would participate in the grant administration for engineering of the project. So our part of it's in the six figures.
But no construction end of it at all?
No, they raised all it, that they're gonna go through the construction process themselves as a 501c3 association.
So what's the next step for us? They want a waiver of the land development?
They're here for tonight to request a waiver, and then if you grant them your next meeting, we just draw up a really quick resolution, and just for our files and our records, just like we did the school district with all of their synthetic turf fields, and then you'll approve it at your next meeting.
Actually, I have a question, slightly off topic. One of your fields was closed most of the season. What was wrong with the field? And that was just curiosity.
Yeah, it was, I believe it was field one up top, or was it field four? Field one. Field one. Basically, it just did not, we just were not able to keep the grass up on it. We had it going for a while, and then all the grass died and the weeds died, and it was just all mud, so it was just not safer for the kids to play on it.
Anybody else? So next meeting I'm assuming everybody's going to be okay with it, so next meeting we'll have a motion for that? Okay.
This is really impressive. Like, to get this money together and do this and carry this forward is really impressive.
Thank you. Thanks.
Been talked about for a long time, so it's exciting.
It's $1 million, right? It's $1 million project for you guys, that doesn't
Yes,
include our cost.
Right.
It's $1 million to construct the field.
Yep.
Wish you lots of luck.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
The next item is Bill's favorite topic that comes around once a year.
It's not as favor as it used to be.
It's your budget message.
Yeah.
He's never had an audience for his budget.
No, this has always been like,
You ready?
If you're
Got to
ready.
get you out of here. I know you guys worked late last night. So this is the 2023 budget message. Just so everyone knows what that means out in the audience, this is a budget draft budget, preliminary budget presentation. The council will work through the budget over the next 4 weeks, and you'll see it, they are scheduled to, where's Mary going?
I'll go get her.
Okay.
I have questions for you after all.
They, council, so December 14th is when council is scheduled to approve the final 2023 budget. But just a couple slides of who we are. Horsham is 17.3 square miles. We have 26,564 residents. We have 5 buildings that we maintain: our township building, our police station, library, public works facility, and community center. We have almost 93 miles of township-owned roads, 870 acres of township-owned parks and open space, which includes 6 community parks and 9 neighborhood playgrounds, tot lots. We have almost 13 miles of trail, which includes the over 5-mile power line trail. Some recognitions that the township received this year: one of the safest places to live in Pennsylvania, a thriving suburban township, most improved newsletter, and we're really proud of that because we really try to communicate to our residents and businesses in many different ways. We're one of the, not last, but one of the few left municipalities that still put out a printed newsletter to their residents. A lot of the municipalities that went away in the 08-09 recession, and they never brought it back. So we're pretty proud of our newsletter, but we revamped the newsletter, as you know, about 2-3 years ago. And we just, this year we won a state award, statewide award for the most improved newsletter in the state. And we also got recognized for the most loved library. So I know we've talked about the library tonight too. We do a lot of projects here, and you awarded a contract earlier this evening for over $6 million. And those numbers sometimes can be a little scary and fearful with what type of budget that we have, but we trace after a lot of grants. And you can see here 4 major projects that we are either working towards or working on. And it's not, well, yeah, the Whitmer Road, Blair Mill Road is the one that you awarded tonight, and you can see that we have, for the $6.6 million, we have $4.8 million in grants. So the township will not be putting out the full $6.6 million for that project. Some accomplishments that we did. So this year, 2022, was a return of a lot of events that we took a pause from because of COVID. So Freezer 5K is returning next month. Project Blue Light, State of Horsham Luncheon, the Easter Egg Hunt, Horsham Day, National Night Out. Carpenter Cross was also held, the bike race in September, Citizens Police Academy this fall. So we were happy to do all those events and bring them back. Some of them were 2 or 3 years off because of COVID. Miracle Field, thank you, Sean. Also, we forgot about that one, but the Miracle Field 5K, which was a fundraiser over in Deep Meadow Park for the Miracle Field. So we're pretty proud of the events, and we really had a good turnout for each of them. Farmers Market, I think everyone's been to the Farmers Market. It's pretty popular. We completed our scheduled paving project. That was completed over the summer months before school started. We had our 3rd annual restaurant week in Horsham. We had our 2nd annual brokers breakfast, and that's mainly to attract companies to town. And we completed our year 1 of our comprehensive plan, and hopefully that will be done and ready for your consideration for adoption November, December of next year. Also, we replaced the Drescher Road and Walnut Grove traffic signal. That's been recently done on Drescher Road. So almost all the signals, not all of them, but also almost all of them have been upgraded also to this ornamental, the black painted ornamental signals, and they really look good. You purchased 298 Welsh Road. That's been for sale for many, many years. It's a very extreme small lot that people that were interested in buying it, there was just no room for parking. It's a very busy intersection now, Welsh Road and Drescher Road, so going in and coming out would cause traffic issues. So council bought that property, and hopefully in the next few weeks, next couple weeks, the building is scheduled to be torn down. And the plan is to bring sidewalks, wrap sidewalks around the property, the street lamps for walkability, make connections, and then do some type of landscaping, rip up all the asphalt, and do some type of landscaping and make it, an attraction for coming into Horsham and also the office parks. We finished the beautification project at Horsham Road and Drescher Road. This was a several-year-long project because we used state grants and other grants to accomplish it, but it was, you purchased the property on the corner, we cleaned that up, knocked down whatever buildings remained from the Horsham Swim Club in the 1950s, and some landscaping companies that were there after the swim club. We built the sidewalks for connectivity, we put the street lamps in, we put the new signal in, and the last thing we did was we took out the concrete on the islands and we planted them with some flowers and vegetation, and that'll be changed out in the spring. So there'll be 2 plantings each year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And that project turned out great. We actually get lots of compliments from people about that project. We started our township banner program, carrying our branding message this year on light poles, not only here in the parking lot of the township building, but throughout the township. And there's organizations that each year historically that provide services within Horsham Township, and each year we include them in the budget to give them an annual contribution. And this is just a listing of those agencies that are in the budget for annual contributions that, again, provide services to us, our community, that we don't have to provide. So that keeps costs down for us, thanks for these organizations and agencies. So our 2023 proposed budget is $19,931,662. The total proposed real estate tax is 1.48 mils. That is an increase of 0.18 mils from this current year, and it is a balanced budget. This is where your tax dollars go. This is just an example. So number 1 is the school district. Number 2 and 3 are the same. Both of them are county taxes, and the 4th one is township tax. This is we put these up as kind of very interesting to compare ourselves to some surrounding communities. So you see the names of the surrounding communities. Underneath the name is their population of their community. In the yellow bracket is their tax millage rate. And then the dark line is the square miles of their community. So you come down to Horsham, and we're one of the largest, but we're in the middle with population, a good-sized population. Size-wise, we are the largest of these communities we compare ourselves to, 17.3 square miles. And you look at the millage rate, and this year we're at 1.3, which is the second lowest. We're right behind Lower Gwinnett. So if you look at some of these other communities, 2 mills, 3 mills, almost 6 mills, 6 mills, Montgomery, 2.49 mills, Hatboro, they're now over 10 mills, Cheltenham, 9.5, Abington, 6 mills. So we compare ourselves to, what are we accomplishing for our residents? What quality of life are we giving our residents? What services are we providing our residents? And where's our tax rate? So even if you approve the 1.48 millage rate, you can see even if no one else moves, we'll still be, right behind. Lower Gwinnett will be behind us, but the next one closest is White Marsh at 2.36. So we have a very low tax rate in Horsham Township. I'm pretty proud of that. For what we're able to accomplish in Horsham for our residents at the tax rate that we have. This is just a general overview. This presentation is a really quick general overview of the budget, but it is a very detailed, complicated budget with many different funds involved. So when you talk about the tax rate and you talk about the $19 million, that's our general fund. So our general fund is supported by taxes, and the general fund is what makes us exist on a day-to-day basis. It provides day-to-day services. When you talk about projects, transportation improvements, some of these capital projects, they come from other different funds. The other funds that we have are restricted funds. Their revenue comes from other sources, not taxes, and sometimes they're limited, they're restricted. You can't move funds from one fund to the general fund if you're short in the general fund. So we probably have aside from the funds that we have listed here, probably 4 or 5 additional funds, but these are the main ones that we use to accomplish projects in Horsham Township. So as I said, there's many details into our budget, many different funds. So the $19 million general fund, that's our general fund budget, and that keeps the day-to-day operations going in the township. So the average single-family dwelling in 2022 is assessed at $182,027. So with a 1.48 mil tax rate, the average homeowner, property owner in Horsham will pay an annual tax bill of $269.40 to the township. And the proposed budget breaks it down for general services at 0.09 mils or $16.38, the library at 0.47 mils, $85.55, fire services, 0.6 mils at $109.22, and parks, 0.32 mils or $58.25. Our earned income tax rate remains at 1%. Local services tax rate remains at $52 a year. Hydrant tax rate is 0.03 mils, and the streetlight assessment is 59 cents a foot for the frontage of your property. Our debt, we're right around $8 million in debt, and that for a township our size, a community our size, that's low debt, actually. We don't like that debt, but we've kept it down over the years to limit ourselves with not too much debt. But there's communities right around us that are well over $15–20 million in debt, and we don't want to put that on the burden our future generations and taxpayers with a huge debt. Our capital project loan, the call date on that is September of next year, and we will check interest rates. That process, if we're going to refinance, that process starts in early 2023, as many of you know, but interest rates aren't looking too good right now. So I don't think I'm going to be, but fingers crossed, you never know. Miracles do happen. I don't think we'll be refinancing that loan next year. This is where our revenue comes from. So you can see most of our revenue comes from the local earned income tax, local services tax, which is the yellow, and real estate tax, which is the blue. So 67% of our total revenue comes from those taxes. And we don't have much after that taxes. Around 35 years ago, sometimes you hear gross receipt tax, business tax, mercantile tax, hotel tax. All of that, the state government, the Commonwealth, told all the municipalities in the Commonwealth about 35 years ago, if you don't have those taxes established by a certain time, you lose that opportunity. At that time, 35 years ago, the decision was made in Horsham not to implement any of those taxes. So when we are being impacted now by our earned income tax. So when something happens to the earned income tax, local services tax, really the only avenue you have to make up for that loss is real estate tax. So, but that's where our revenue all comes from. This is not something new. We've been talking about this the last couple years. Unfortunately, the results of the pandemic and the unexpected inflation has accelerated what we thought were coming a few years from now. But our revenue stream is not able to keep pace with growth, services, maintenance in the future. The outlook is expected to see growth in expenditures and further decline in revenues. The pandemic impact, along with inflation, has greatly impacted our earned income tax and local services tax revenue. And how it has impacted is we've had companies leave Horsham. We're over 5,000 jobs that we've lost in Horsham over the last 3 years. And we have people working, companies that are allowing their employees to work from home, which is also affecting our earned income tax and local services tax. So I'm a little biased when I go around town saying everyone should be working from their office, because we have 5 office parks in Horsham that we want these companies and we want these employees to come back to work in the office. It's very hard to implement quality of life improvements. Most of the residents, most of the people that work in Horsham, they want certain things. They want certain things to look a certain way. They want trails, they want parks, they want walkability. They have a whole list of what they want. But in order for us to do that, we need them back in the office. If we lose more companies, we've lost about $250,000 over the last 3 years in earned income tax. And it is projected next year and in 2024, we could lose another $250,000. And that's major. That is major to us. We need these companies to come back. We need the employees to come back, and it's really affecting us of what we'll be able to do. We will need increases in revenue soon, and a different financial era is here, and it's here now. This is our millage history. So in 2023, we're proposing 1.48. We're still low compared to many of the other towns and what our past millage rate has been prior to 1997. Again, this is just municipalities. Another chart of where we stand to compare to others and our population underneath. We also do our employee comparison. Well, how do we compare to, population-wise? How do we compare staff-wise? And you can see Abington, the dark blue is total employees, the yellow is police officers, and the light blue is non-uniformed, non-police officer civilian staff. This year we're at 87 full-time employees. That includes 41 sworn uniformed police officers and 46 staff members. We're conservative in our number. Plymouth is at 129, Upper Moreland's 100, Upper Dublin's 128, and their taxes reflect that. Your biggest cost with any organization or any company is overhead. So their taxes reflect, but they have more people, and they can do sometimes a little bit more, but we have great staff in Horsham that work very hard. They're very dedicated. We have employees that have been with us for 30, 40 years, and they're very committed to the township and do a great job, and we're very close to doing and offering services that any of these towns do. Some projects. The library actually turns 20 years old next in 2024. And it needs a new roof. We've been patching it now for about a little over 5 years. We're lucky that no damage has occurred to our books or our computers at the library, but our roofing company that we use, they can't patch anymore. So it's about $350,000 for a new roof for the library. That's a project on the project list for next year. The Whitmer Road Detention Basin redesign and retrofit. Engineering and permit applications for the extension of the Power Line Trail. As you know, we've been trying to get the trail out to Lower State Road from where it ends at Bywood Road. And PICO stopped everyone about 2 years ago, and PICO said no more trails, no more recreation activities under or on our properties, which made me take a ride down to Center City, and I talked with some PICO officials, and they did grant us permission to go to Lower State Road. It's 18 months, oh, he's gone. It's 18 months to get permits, but Gilmore's now working on them. So, good news that we can at least get out to Lower State Road. I don't know if PICO will allow us. As you know, the Power Line Trail is supposed to go through Montgomery Township and connect to the 202 Parkway Trail. Right now, PICO's not allowing anything past Lower State Road at the present time. So take wins when we can get it and try to get wins in the future. New traffic signal at Blair Mill Road at the Horsham Gate and Willow Point Shopping Center driveways. That'll be going in next year. Also in the budget, proposed budget, is the replacement of traffic signals at Drescher Road, Sawmill Lane and New Road. So these are the last signals that aren't upgraded on Drescher Road. So everything else has been done. These are the older galvanized, they don't have the up-to-date technology, so they would be the last ones on Drescher Road to be done. Also, new park signs are in the budget. You have not seen them yet, but they're coming your way. As you know, you appointed an ad hoc committee to look at new park signage, entrance signage, and they did accomplish their job. They did pick a design out. They worked with a consultant, and the park board just recently also approved the same design. So now it's coming to you for review and consideration but we're putting money into the budget to start them next year. You already heard about the Horsham soccer turf field, but the same thing with the Miracle Field across the street in Deep Meadow Park. You are funding the engineering for that project, so the engineering costs are included in that project. Both projects are proceeding. The good news with the Miracle Field is they just reached their halfway point, so Gilmore has been given the green light. So this month and next month they're doing survey work and soil testing, and they're getting to design in January for the field. Two things you asked us to research this year were electric vehicle charging stations and solar energy. That research has been done, and you'll be given presentations in the first quarter of next year, but we did plug money into the budget if you decide to proceed with either one after your presentations early next year. Our 2023 paving project includes Moreland Avenue from Meeting House Road to Maple Avenue, the entirety of Sawmill Lane from Drescher Road to Horsham Road, Fairway Road, Woodlawn Avenue, Glen Acres Drive, Fieldstone Lane, Indian Creek Way, and Blacksmith Circle. Other projects, we're replacing the outfield fence on Field 9 at Deep Meadow Park. We're replacing and updating all restroom fixtures at the Lukens Park, soccer fields and football fields, sinks, toilets, that type of stuff in the restrooms. We also have money plugged in for a feasibility study for a possible detention basin at Wayne Avenue Park. This is the property of the old elementary school that you recently acquired through the United States Navy off 611. So we've always talked about a possible detention basin there. In our older section of the township, there is no stormwater control. So there, if a detention basin works on this property, a portion of this property, as you know, it's 9 acres, so it's not the whole property. But it would really help the neighborhoods downstream, especially the neighborhoods behind the firehouse on Meeting House Road. At least it would give some stormwater control. Right now, everything just sheet flows into our pipes. That neighborhood gets hit very hard during heavy rainstorms and hurricanes. And if a basin works, it would help them out a lot behind the firehouse. Funds set aside, as you know, College Settlement, about 31 acres of College Settlement property is looking to be permanently preserved from any future development. It's not, I wish it was the whole 250 acres of college settlement, but we'll take 31 acres. But if it gets approved at the county and state level, our contribution, as you know, is 15%. So we set aside funds if needed next year for that. And also audio-visual upgrade to the community center. We put money in there. Our community center is used a lot for training purposes and off-site training for the school district, for companies in town. And it really, our system from 2005, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we put money in for a full upgrade of the audio-visual system in the community center. We just talked about the Blair Mill Road construction for Phase 2. Hopefully that will start early spring next year and be completed by the end of next year. We are continuing working on the right-of-way acquisition and final engineering for the Horsham Road and Limekill Pike, and there's money put into the budget for that. The right-of-way is taking us longer than what we had projected. But the good news is all the property owners are working with us. Some think they are owed a lot more than what the appraisals are coming back. So we are working with each of the property owners individually. There's 41 properties affected by this project. So it's a really big undertaking to deal with each property owner and to try to address everything each property owner is looking for and wants. The Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus, to try to sustain that office park. We talked about the importance of our office parks. So the street lamp project is hopefully going to start next year. We had to acquire easements from private property owners, 5 different private property owners where the street lamps were not going in the right-of-way, they're going on private property, and that took us a while. Some of these are national companies, and we were dealing with attorneys from all over the country in trying to work out the agreements and easements, but we have all in place right now. So we ought to be moving forward with that in the back and next year. As I think most of the people here are talking about, our pickleball courts have exploded. They are getting a lot of high use. So what we looked at is an expansion of the pickleball courts to add another 4 to the rear of the community center. And this is strictly a conceptual drawing that Dennis did a very good job at. So it's not an engineered, but the reason why they're shaped this way is because we have a stormwater pipe in the ground right here, so they can't come this way anymore, and then we have a swale in the back that's taking stormwater, and they can't go back into the woods anymore. So a little different orientation, but we could fit 4 more courts if you so choose in the rear. We have talked and met with Farmers Market. I have discussed it with them, and they're aware of it, and you know, they're on board with it with some conditions. Primarily, and I agree with it. It's the safety thing. We don't want pickleball playing during the farmers market. It goes from June to November. If you decide to add 4 more courts, there's now a total of 8 courts, so there's more time. The farmers market is out of there by 2:30 in the afternoon, and then pickleball can resume at 2:30. So you just try to make everyone happy the best you can and try to compromise and build consensus. And so the farmers market is, they're aware of the, and have been given this diagram. Now, the other thing in parking, this would take away about 22 parking spots. And so what I asked Public Works to do, there's a grass area, if you notice, right adjacent in the rear. We can't pave that because that's in the floodplain. But if we use it for overflow parking when needed, we would not need this on a daily basis. It would be a Horsham Day event, a National Night Out event. It's rare that our parking lot gets filled completely, but if there was a need, and we thought something was going to happen or an event was going to take place where we would need extra spots, Public Works has laid out that they could stripe the grass area with white spray paint, and that would create 52 extra parking spaces. So that's would be an overflow parking area for the community center. Other 2023 projects, we plugged in money for a tree giveaway program for those property owners affected by Hurricane Ida tornado. As you know, we were hit hard by that on September 1st of 2021. Many residents in our township lost lots of trees on their property. So we plugged in money to give each property owner, if they so choose, one tree. We don't have any, many details of that until you would approve the budget, and then we would work on the details. But most likely, we would be giving out the trees next fall. Next spring's too soon because you have to pass the budget in December, and then we need time to work through the logistics of it all. How's it going to work? Species, size, where are we giving these trees away? So all those logistics and ordering from the nursery. It's too late to do it in the spring. So you have to, to place this size order of trees, the nursery needs time. So from our landscape architect, they said it would be a fall giveaway program next year. Preliminary, we put some money in, and a lot of these projects, when we talked about earlier, there's different funds, but some of these projects are grant money too. So again, for tonight's purposes, I'm just trying to tell you projects and things that we're doing, and I'm not itemizing everything, what's going to be a grant application, what's going to be grant funds, what's going to be capital improvement funds. I just want to try to get through and show you what, planning and what we'd like to get done and start. So, as you know, Blair Mill Road widening has been worked on for a number of years now. Phase 2 will be completed next year. You know how long things take to get done in PennDOT world. We started that in January of 2016, and we're going to construction in 2023. So we did put money in for preliminary engineering for Blair Mill Road widening Phase 3, which is the final phase, and that will widen Blair Mill Road from Welsh Road to 611 Easton Road, 5 lanes. So that will be the final phase of and that would accomplish the widening of Blair Mill Road. Also, preliminary engineering for the Horsham Road Bridge over Park Creek in front of Kohler Park. As you know, when the PPP project, public-private partnership project, was done about 22 years ago, widening of Horsham Road, it was supposed to go all the way up to Limekiln Pike, and it didn't because at the time money ran out to take out that bridge in front of Kohler Park, and there just wasn't money to do it. So we are plugging in money to do preliminary engineering for that bridge replacement, because when Horsham Road and Limekiln Pike get done, it'll be widened out to in front of our building here, and then we just have this section between Babylon and the Township building to make Horsham Road 5 lanes, but we can't do that until the bridge is replaced. So bridge is step 1, and we're putting engineering costs for preliminary engineering to start next year. As you know, these projects take 5 to 10 years. Also, we plugged money in to do the Meeting House Road and Moreland Avenue intersection ADA ramp project. If you're familiar with that intersection, we paved Meeting House Road this year, and we're paving Moreland Avenue next year, and we're required to bring our ramps up to current ADA standards when you pave a road, but that is a very difficult intersection because of primarily the one old farmhouse on the corner that has the wall, and so it is a heavy lift for us. It's a $230,000 project. It's been designed now by our township engineers. We'll have to go out for bid for it, but we are required to meet the ADA requirements, and that's what it's going to take for us to do that at that intersection. That's unusual for us because usually a ramp is $5,000 to bring up to ADA standards. So that's a $250,000 project to do that. Economic development, we're keeping what we normally do, the broker's breakfast, the restaurant week. We're looking at a community job fair. We're advertising and marketing the township statewide, regional, statewide, and now on the national level. We do the State of Horsham luncheon. Two things we didn't get done this year that we'll work on next year, and it was just because of staff time and other projects taken away, was a business recognition program and business welcoming program. And the more exciting one that we're going to start in the first quarter of next year is finally our shuttle bus pilot program. Right now we're just calling it HOPS, Horsham Office Park Shuttle. We do not have a train station in Horsham Township, and we hear from our major employers and office park owners that they have a hard time sometimes attracting the younger generation that's living in West Philly, Center City, Manayunk. Most of them won't drive. Some of them don't have a car, but they will take the train. But we don't have a train station. So what we're going to do is it'll be our pilot year. We will have a shuttle bus that will go from the Ambler train station, and it will bring people to the Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus as well as the Horsham Business Center. We do have a couple employers that will be contributing towards the bus, but it'll be free of charge. People can jump on the bus from the train, be brought right to their place of employment, and then taken back in the evening. And the bus will be running all day, so in case someone has to go home, they're sick, or they have a sick child, or whatever, they have a half day, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, they can grab the bus and head back to the train station. So we're really excited to get that started, and I think that will help us attract new companies and new businesses to Horsham, having that service available. Some other capital purchases, we want year 2, our comprehensive plan, and hopefully to wrap that up at the end of next year. We have in the budget to replace 4 police vehicles, replace a public works pickup truck, replace a public works front end loader. We have in the budget also for painting the exterior of the public works facility. Our timeline tonight is the 9th, so the 28th at your next meeting we'll be reviewing the budget again, and then December 14th we'll do a review of the budget before and have a public hearing before you consider the budget and tax levy for 2023. Our summary is we are continuing our conservative budgeting practices, and we're maintaining our infrastructure, and a lot of towns don't do that, and that's something that I'm very proud that Horsham has done forever, and they've always maintained their roads. If we have extra money, we'll do something extra, but we put our money towards our current infrastructure. You hear many times about bridges falling down, stormwater pipes collapsing underneath the roads. We maintain all that. You're not going to hear about that happening in Horsham, and we're not going to put that on the burden of future generations of Horsham residents. We maintain a health reserve fund in our capital fund, in our highway fund, in our park improvement fund. We still maintain our high bond rating, AA1. We have a balanced budget. We're maintaining the quality of life and services to the residents, and we're keeping Horsham Township moving forward. Also planning for the future, things that we're looking at that are not plugged in. Well, some things are plugged in the budget, others aren't, but sidewalks and street lamps along the frontage of 747 Drescher Road and 298 Welsh Road. We're going to try to find a grant to do those, so they might not get done until 2024, but we're going to try to find a grant next year to do them in 2024. An asphalt trail, it's a little bit different. We're mixing things up, and your master site plan for the office park called for this combination. This on the other side of Drescher Road where the Horsham Business Center drive is, instead of putting concrete sidewalk in, the plan is to put an asphalt trail in along Drescher Road and Welsh Road. So if the intersection of Whitmer and Drescher, where Penn Mutual is, that's where it would start. It would go all the way down Drescher to Welsh, wrap around Welsh to Village. So it would be an asphalt trail rather than a sidewalk. And it just gives a different mix, different feel for those that might not want to use the sidewalk on the other side of the street and might want to use an asphalt trail. Street lamps on Drescher Road to continue them through the office park. And another idea, which is part of our branding, is wrapping traffic control boxes to promote the branding and promote the township. Also, other things planning for the future, we have 3 areas that we know we need landscaped artwork for at 298 Welsh Road. We now own the property at Easton Road and Blair Mill Road, the old Adams Pit Stop, and also the library. The library has a circle in front of the building that we never put anything and never did anything with. So we know we need some assistance and would probably need to hire a consultant to help us design each of those 3 areas. Paving of Deep Meadow Park parking lot, that goes along with the Miracle Field. We want to do that after the Miracle Field is constructed because the construction vehicles for the Miracle Field, we don't want them to damage a new paved parking lot, but we do have plans to pave that parking lot. We're thinking, or trying to be, there's nothing in the budget, nothing's happening next year, but we're looking at replacement and trying to be creative in how we do it with funding the Deep Meadows, replacement of the Deep Meadows snack stand, garage, and restrooms into one building, a clubhouse. So we're looking into the future on that. And also restriping Drescher Road. We have a small section between Business Center Drive and Welsh Road to restripe it to make a center turn lane. And then just looking forward, as I've already mentioned, we're being impacted by the pandemic. It moved quicker on us than what we were planning with the companies that have left town and the companies that are working from home. The inflation that we didn't inspect and how high the costs have risen, and now the expected recession that is supposed to occur next year. So, we're being impacted by it all. And it's imperative that we continue our conservative budgeting practices, and at the same time, it's critical that we don't lose sight of Horsham's vision and long-term goals as we address short-term challenges.
Man,
That's it.
Bill, I gotta say, that's very, very well put together presentation.
Thank you.
A lot of thought went into that, and pretty long wish list there, things to do.
There's a lot going on in Horsham. We make it look easy, we make it look quiet, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot coming.
So, as I said, tonight is just the review. Again, this is the first time that council's seen this and reviewed it, so we have a lot of things to look at and discuss. As you know, a lot of these things cost money, and the money has to come from somewhere. Some comes from, grants, some comes from government loans, some comes from, what is it, the PPE stuff and the...
Yeah, the grants, loans.
The other one we were talking about, why did free money plan? Yeah.
Public-private partnerships.
Yeah. PPP. But there was another. No, there was the money coming from the federal government we talked about.
The federal, yeah.
Yeah, the federal funds. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that we can get money, but nothing's guaranteed. So a lot of these projects depend on the money we get, because we don't build a lot of this. We don't use tax money to build some of the stuff that we plan on doing. So we'll work on reviewing the budget. Hopefully we can do a lot of the things that he presented tonight. Time will tell. We've had to push things back in the past that we just couldn't get around to or didn't have the money for, but we're hopeful. And we'll see what happens. But we'll be reviewing this again next month, at the end of this month.
November 28th, next
Yeah.
meeting. Yep.
So we'll have, council have time to go through this, and next meeting we'll be discussing it further and seeing where we go from there. Anybody have any questions? Anybody out there? You're here. Yeah, you got to give your name and address and all that good stuff.
My name's David McPhillips, 606 Man Road, Horsham, Pennsylvania.
You gotta get close to the mic.
Oh, sorry. David McPhillips, 606 Man Road, Horsham, PA. Have been a resident for 30 years and a business owner for the same. I'm the United States Pickleball Ambassador for the Happer Horsham area and the pickleball instructor for Horsham Township. And I want to thank Bill for a really great job, and Kyle Lynch from Parks and Recs, and Dennis Haggerty for being such great supporters. And 2.5 years ago, I was in front of the council about our first original 4 courts, getting approval for them, and I want you to thank you for your support and hopefully your continued support. Pickleball is an amazing sport. It's the fastest growing sport in the country. There's 5 million players, and it's estimated by the Sports and Fitness Industry Association that there's going to be 40 million players by the year 2030. There's new courts opening all over the country. There's over 40,000 indoor and outdoor courts, and they're opening up all the time. And one of the things I like when I talk to Bill and Kyle and Dennis is that, and what I love about Horsham is that we seem to be ahead of the curve. Because I see a lot of the other communities that are in this area, in this county, and Horsham Pickleball they're very envious of this and the cooperation that we have from players and the cooperation we have from council and keeping up with change. And we've seen this growth with Horsham Pickleball in just 2 years this is our second full season. We have 200 members, which is the maximum that we're able to do with the courts that we have. But we have many, many, many more residents and non-residents that want to join that unfortunately are not able to because we don't have enough courts. So these additional 4 courts will allow us to increase membership to keep up with community demand and expand and improve the pickleball programs and events and experiences that we provide. We have members that pay registration, residents, non-residents. We run tournaments that we contribute to Horsham Township for the Horsham Pickleball Expansion Fund. We teach, proceeds go towards that same fund. So I think that one of the good things about Horsham Pickleball too is that it's a funding thing. It's a sustainable thing, and while we're certainly asking for help and for funding, that in the bigger picture, this is going to pay for itself in a very short period of time. This is a very exciting time for all of us involved in making pickleball a sport that so many people love to play, whether it's competitively, for fun, for physical and mental health, to be a part of a welcoming community, or for all those reasons. Pickleball is very unifying. It brings family and friends and strangers and community together. And like our Horsham saying is, it connects our community together. And it really does. And you can see by the people here, and I really want to thank them. They took time out of their busy schedules just to show support for this. And I'm very blessed as being the kind of the director of this program to have great people that really care and help and see what this sport does, not only for them, but for their friends. And it's a very social thing. But these courts are an investment in our community's present and future. And all of us tonight would urge you to support and approve the proposed budget that include these 4 additional courts. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we need a motion to introduce the budget.
Move to introduce the 2023 budget and tax levy ordinance and hereby authorize advertisement of the same.
Second.
Moved in second, it's a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next is the resolution which will establish a time and place for a public hearing that will increase the township's funding for the general and fire services by the .18 mils that will be going into the budget hopefully in 2023.
Move to adopt the resolution as proposed, establishing Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. in the Horsham Township Building, 1025 Horsham Road, as a time/place for public hearing on the proposed ordinance to increase the township's funding for general and fire services by 0.18 mils in 2023.
Second.
Second, this is a roll call vote.
Ms. Harmon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And Mr. McCouch, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, being that there's no further business for tonight, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Have a good night.